Hello, hello, hello. I think I'm in the window. I think it's right. Okay, so I am here. I'm Shayna Glass, and we want to welcome everybody to coming to our 10th anniversary celebration of TCCA here in Aldine. We are excited to recognize attendees from all over the world who have registered to be with us today. My name is Shayna Glass, and I am hosting this session along with my co-host Anna. And before I introduce the presenters, I want to go over a few items with you. The title of this session is, and I have it here, Computer Science Teacher Training and Policy. And it will promptly end at 1:50 so that we can prepare for the next session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them in the chat on the right side of your screen. Towards the end of the session, I will give the presenter a 10-minute warning and allow them to wrap up and answer any questions that you may have. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce your presenters. So let me tell you who is in the room. We have LeoLin, Bowen, and Alexis, Harrigan. And LeoLin here serves as the regional manager at co.org, and she's based in Austin, right here in Texas. She works to support co.org's network of regional partners and manages the outreach of their professional development in multiple states. Before co.org, LeoLin managed a national program consulting public institutions, food services systems to train and educate cooks and chefs on how to serve healthy options. In her free time, LeoLin also is a freelance writer who has been published in several online publications, and she's a mom of a 10-year-old who wants to design Pokemon games when he grows up. Welcome, LeoLin.
Thank you.
We also have Alexis, and she serves as the Director of State Government Affairs at co.org, where she works with law and policy. So we need to really get close to Alexis. She works with policymakers in multiple states to expand access to computer science education. She's based out of Colorado, so she's not local, but that's great because we're all over the country right now. And Alexis's career in education policy spans local, state, and federal levels. As a proud daughter of Mexican immigrants, Alexis is passionate about co.org's focus on increasing computer science participation by women and students from marginalized racial and ethnic groups. She enjoys spending time with her husband and 2 young children. Welcome, Alexis. Right now, I am going to pass the torch to the two of them. You're on, ladies.
Great. Thanks so much, Shane. I really appreciate it. So like she said, if you're here for the computer science teacher training and policy session, you are in the right place. Once again, my name is LeoLin Bowen, and I'm the regional manager for the South region at co.org. I'm a part of about 9 people on the outreach team who cover the whole of the United States. And I have my colleague here, Alexis, who's here.
Sorry, I realized I was on mute. Thank you, LeoLin. Alexis Menocal Harrigan. I am proud to be here with you today. LeoLin and I work very closely together, overlapping in several states. And as was mentioned earlier, I'm based in Denver, Colorado, but I miss traveling down to Austin, where I was often traveling down there to meet at the Capitol and do lobbying work in Texas. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so today on our agenda, we're going to go over the current landscape of computer science education, starting with why is computer science even important? Giving a little bit of info about the diversity or lack thereof currently in computer science. We're going to talk about some current policies that are happening. And then we're going to wrap up with talking about how you can support expansion and then any question and answers you all have at the end. And then our session goals, of course, priority number 1 is to have fun. We would love for you all to walk away with recognizing the significance of computer science education, understanding the impact of policy on local computer science education, and of course, how to support the expansion of CS in your community. So let's get started with why computer science. So I want to first talk about why we should even been thinking about computer science, increasing access and participation specifically in the K through 12 level. So computer science is transforming every industry, from transportation to retail to healthcare, even to education. And as we probably all are, we're walking around carrying little computers in our pockets. So when we talk about computer science, this isn't just about a couple of students who are interested in going into the tech field. A core piece of education for K through 12 is teaching students how the world works. Our kids learn about evaporation in the rain, so they understand how water falls from the sky. We teach them about their bodies, not because they want to go and be doctors, but because they're going to be living in their bodies their whole lives. So for example, when I go to the doctor and they have to take blood for a test, I may not know the names of every single vein, but I understand that a vein is how blood moves through my body. So I have a sense of how my body works. And that's important because, like I said, we're going to be living in our bodies for our whole life. So it's the same way with technology. So like I said, we teach kids about how clouds work. We teach them about how their body work. Our kids are living in a world full of technology. And I don't want my kid or any of our students to think that, technology or the internet is just some magic thing and they type in some buttons and it magically appears. In K through 12, we should teach how computers work. We should teach how the internet works, what big data is, and even starting to talk about artificial intelligence. This is foundational knowledge for the world that our students live in. And so not only with foundational knowledge, there's actually a financial number tagged into computer science education. Along with CS being foundational, our students should have, a student who majors in computer science can earn 40% more than the average college degree. And then when they're done with school and they enter into the workforce, there are job openings across all industries in every single state. Right now, there are about over 500,000 current openings in jobs in computing right now, representing the #1 source of new wages in the United States. And these jobs are projected to continue to grow at twice the rate of all other jobs. Now, some people may think this problem is about STEM, so the STEM subjects. But we would suggest that we have a major computer science problem when it comes to the alignment between participation in K through 12 CS education and opportunities in our modern economy. So the chart on the left shows the projected STEM jobs in our US economy broken down out by computing jobs and all other STEM jobs. And then the chart on the right, shows students graduating with STEM jobs broken out by computer science job versus all other math and science subjects. So as these graphs show, we clearly have a disconnect in our education system. So now I want to talk a little bit, after talking about why CS is important, and I want to talk a little bit about the diversity problem that we have in computer science right now. So here are the percentages available to us right now. And what we know from data is that we start to see disparities in not only which students have access to CS, but more importantly, which students are taking the AP CX exams. And we also know that despite seeing year-over-year gains of the number of girls that take the AP CX exam, their numbers still continue to lag behind their male counterparts. And you know what, we're all people made up of different identities. And so we know as well that students come to computer science with multiple identities. We know that there are compounding implications of being from multiple marginalized groups such as Black females. And that can result in even greater disparities in outcomes for diverse students. So as leaders, we need to attend to students' intersecting identities to ensure our outreach efforts are addressing the needs of all students. So our data shows that 29% of the girls, like I showed on the last slide, who took the AP CS exam in 2019, out of those 29%, only 7% were Black or African American, and only 18% are Hispanic or Latinx girls, which tells us that female students and students of color are less likely to take computer science courses, even if they have access. And so if we don't start solving this problem in elementary school, it will then continue to high school, which you see in the data, which means that the gap will continue to grow in computer science degrees, which then leads to a less diverse workforce in tech degrees and in industries around the country. Consider that tech jobs are the fastest growing, highest paying, most in-demand jobs in America. If these 10 trends continue to grow, that means that only 1 out of 4 of those jobs will be filled by women. And the stats for Black and Hispanic Latinx students tell a similar story as well. So I'm gonna bring on my colleague, Alexis, who's gonna tell us a little bit more about policy and how policies can help fix these disparities.
Thanks, LeoLin. Love the GIFs. For those of you who are not aware and probably are wondering what is going on with the GIFs, we are huge Schitt's Creek fans here at code.org. So we have to throw a little bit of fun in there. So I wanted to talk about how policy can help solve for some of these gaps that we see in access and participation. Next slide, please. So at code.org, the code.org Advocacy Coalition several years ago came up with a 9-point policy strategy. And we've been able to use those strategies to examine, to make sure that we're closing gaps in access to computer science education. I'm not going to go over those 9 at this moment, but this is just a quick snapshot of what those 9 policies are, and they work on a couple different areas. Next slide. So we've been able to see tremendous progress over the last several years since several items have happened in the computer science space, including states adopting more policies year over year, the passage of the AP Computer Science P exam, which allows more students to have access, and it's a easier entry point. With our latest report that we just published 2 weeks ago, you can find that report at advocacy.code.org, and all of those stats are there as well. We have for the first time ever, 100% of states reporting on public high school data. This is the first year we've had 100%. And with that data, we now know only 47% of all high schools teach computer science. And when we start to look at how those, where those schools are and breaking them down, it's not surprising to see that the majority of those schools are in wealthier and suburban communities, where our rural and urban schools are lagging further behind. Next slide, please. And so going back to the policies I mentioned earlier, we've been able to show a connection between the passage of policies and the increase of access. So the dots that are on the screen there in the graph represent a different state and how many policies of the 9 a state has passed. So as you can see, with the greater increase of policies adopted and implemented, we see a greater percentage of schools increasing access. Next slide. So the access report that I mentioned is 47% of schools across the country, but this map actually shows the percentage by state. So the dark blue shows states that have the greatest access, of over 75% of public high schools offering the course. So we see states like Nevada, West Virginia, Arkansas, South Carolina are doing much better than their neighboring states and in their region. And we attribute part of that to the adoption of policies and leadership of the state level from policymakers, and also tremendous departments of education who are working closely with many partner providers, including code.org, to ensure teachers have access to high quality professional development, which we'll hear about later from LeoLin. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about those 9 policies now, and I'll go through slide by slide describing what those policies are and how many. In the map you'll see here on the screen, it shows which states have adopted those policies. So first and foremost, it's important that states have a plan on how to tackle computer science education. Just like we teach biology or chemistry or anatomy, we want to make sure computer science is integrated into the curriculum as well. And we can't do that without setting goals, plans, determining how much money needs to be spent on these opportunities. Next slide. The next is K-12 computer science standards. So we have to make sure that we're teaching towards standards so that students in rural communities in California are able to have the same level of content knowledge as students in, let's say, Atlanta, Georgia. And to do this, we want to make sure that there are K-12 computer science standards. Now, every state has different standards, but there are 2 that we strongly recommend. That's the Computer Science Teachers Association and the K-12 computer science framework. And most states have adopted a version or content standards aligned to those. Next slide. Next is state funding, and this is crucially important when we start passing policies. If we pass policies without funding and support, having an unfunded mandate often will create bigger issues with access, because districts that have the resources are able to fund their programs better than school districts that don't. So 29 states have passed these policies. So feel free to ask questions in the YouTube channel or in the comments. And at the end of the presentation about the 9 policies, I'm happy to take a few questions before I turn it back over to LeoLin. All right, next slide. And then teacher certification. So these states in green have either an endorsement or a dedicated certification for computer science education. Other states may not have a certification, but there is maybe a STEM. They don't have a computer science certification, but there may be a STEM or a CTE certification that's required in order to teach computer science in the state. Next slide. Pre-service teacher preparation. I would argue this is one of the hardest things to pass as a lobbyist and as somebody who works with many departments of education and legislators. Pre-service teacher preparation essentially means that teachers who are currently in colleges of education, or pre-service I should say, and want to become computer science teachers, they have a pathway to do so while they're still becoming trained to be a teacher. Only a handful of states have programs that are endorsed by the state or even have programs available in their universities. And this is one of the very key aspects to making sure that we're preparing teachers for these jobs that, unfortunately, like many STEM jobs, we know are desperately in demand. Next slide. The next policy is a computer science state supervisor. So most departments of education have a math coordinator, a science coordinator. It's important to also have a computer science coordinator within the Department of Education who is overseeing the grant programs, standards, and other important aspects of the computer science implementation of that state. 29 states have that right now. Next slide. Now, this is one of the also more challenging ones, and in some cases, we're unable to pass this policy due to constitutional limits within states. But having a requirement that all high schools offer a computer science course. This isn't to say that every student has to take a course, and we're not advocating for a graduation requirement, at least not right now. But it's still very important that students have access, and that is one of the biggest challenges. As you saw earlier, not 47% of all high schools offering. We know urban and rural districts are less likely to offer those courses. So we have to start with making sure students even have the class available before we can begin to talk about participation. Next slide. And then we have core graduation credit. So allowing math or science to count to substitute for a 3rd year of math or a 4th year of science, for example. We at Code.org often advocate for a flex credit, so allowing it to count for multiple credits. So it could be an elective credit, a math or science credit, and in some cases, some states allow it to count for a foreign language credit. Next slide. And I believe this is the final one, higher ed admissions. So similar to the graduation credit, allowing computer science, particularly AP computer science classes, to count for a math or science for the graduation, for higher ed admissions at universities. This type of policy can either happen through the legislature or happen within a board, what's called a board of regents, and the university system that's overseeing many colleges in the state. Next slide. So how can you get involved? You can go to advocacy.code.org. You can write a letter to your teacher or your principal. You can advocate to your local school board and ask them what the status is of computer science, and you can testify before your local school board. You can present about computer science education. All of the slides that LeoLin and I presented are available at advocacy.code.org, or as I mentioned earlier, code.org/promote. And they're all open source, so you feel free to use them as you're advocating in your local communities. And then finally, you can host an hour of code in your local school And all of that information also is available on our websites. So with that, I'm happy to take, let's see, it looks like there was a question about a computer science degree needed. Just, Shana, do we know what question that was?
Yes, so there were a couple questions.
Okay.
One is, how important is it to have a degree in computer science when companies are more skills focused? That's one question. And then the other question, that is about degrees, CS degree needed.
Okay, so I'll start with the second one, and I'm not sure if they're meaning CS degrees needed to teach computer science. I'm going to infer that that's yes. If not, please feel free to clarify, and I'm happy to answer if that's not the case. So we don't believe that computer science degrees are needed to teach computer science. Our programs are very much designed to be teacher-led and teacher-led learning. So teachers oftentimes are learning along with their students and are a few weeks ahead in the curriculum. At least this is the case for some of our primary and early secondary. It is important that teachers have some knowledge of programming language under their belt and have more sophisticated levels of higher education. This is why the certification piece is so important. Oftentimes, states will have a requirement of being able to pass a praxis exam, a computer science praxis exam. You do not need to have 4 years of college as a computer science major to pass the praxis, but you do need to have a certain amount of high quality professional development under your belt to be able to pass that exam. So the short answer, no, you do not need to have a computer science degree in order to teach computer science. And I would argue that, for the programs like in Colorado that we have, the easiest way to become a teacher is if you're coming from industry and going into the CTE certification to teach computer science, and you actually require less of the pedagogy of teaching computer science. So it's important to both have the content knowledge, and you can get that through professional development. Code.org is one of many great providers, and having the pedagogy as well.
So I'm going to extend onto the question because he clarified. It's
okay.
How important is it to have a degree in CS for students now as they go into computer science pathways in high school and go on to college? Is the push still to have students to receive a degree in computer science for these jobs, or is it should they be focused more on skills?
Right.
Skills focus. And then there's an additional question, and I'll put it in the private chat for you. But what can CS? He said that he teaches at a P-Tech school, which is emphasizes work-based learning experiences. Mm-hmm. What can CS policy do to strengthen connections between the private sector and education policy and standards?
Thank you. So that's a great question. And we've seen really great examples of industry and CTE or P-Tech programs partnering with industry to create apprenticeship programs, internships, mentorship programs for students who may not be college bound, but are going straight into career. So Texas is a good example. There is a cybersecurity pathway. There's a computer science pathway. Louisiana, I know there's several folks from Louisiana who are attending the conference, also has a computer science pathway under the STEM program at LSU, partnering with the Louisiana Department of Education. So I think pathways are a great way to allow students to explore what is it that they want to do with computer science content knowledge. If they decide they want to go into a program at a university and go through for 4 years, become a computer science major, we want to be able to prepare them in doing so at the high school level. If they decide they want to go straight into career, and you can earn, as a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 straight out of high school if you are, if you're going in and going into programming fields, but or IT, for example, but you may not be able to get as far in your career if you want to go into tech if you don't have that degree. It's not necessary, but it certainly makes it easier. So it really just depends. And then the last thing I'll say, and then I'm happy to let LeoLin fill in any gaps that I may have missed, is we're not advocating that all students become computer science majors. I don't have a computer science degree. LeoLin doesn't have a computer science degree. But being able to advocate for computer science, we've had to learn basics of what computer science is. And I would also say that even for folks who are going in and wanting to become entrepreneurs, having a basic understanding of computational thinking, of basic programming, understanding the importance of privacy, all of these things are very important. Just as LeoLin mentioned earlier, just like it's important to know about anatomy or biology, we're not saying people need to become doctors. We just think it's important to have the basics. And then if you want to take it further, then we're happy to support students do that as well. And the second, or go ahead, LeoLin, as I read the second question.
No, you're answering them well. I was going to say that as well, especially thinking about, for example, our Hour of Code theme for this year is CS for Good, where we are working with kids around the country and actually internationally and thinking about the ways that they can use computer science for good in the world. We have a new project on the website talking about AI, and I think AI is a big topic right now that I think all kids need to learn about, and the importance of it and how it's being used. So I think that's one of the fields when I think about it, of like, it's important regardless of whatever field or job or industry that a kid wants to get into, like that's something they're going to need to know. So these are great questions, by the way. So please keep them coming.
The other piece I'll just mention as Shayna's telling us the next question is, before she tells us the next question, is Microsoft Teals and the Amazon Future Engineer programs are amazing programs. We've worked with both of them. And I know many of our partners have worked with them. And that's a fantastic way to get industry into the classroom. And then in Texas, I know the UT Austin has a really strong program run by Carol Fletcher over at the, I forget the name of the center now, but they're doing some incredible work in this space as well.
Yes, that was the one. I was going to phrase his comment as a question. He said he would love to learn about specific campuses maybe that have these strong partnerships. So if you know of any school systems, not on the collegiate level, but K-12, that actually have the partnerships to push these students into these pathways for success, please share.
That's a great question. How about I finish up? I'm going to talk about the PD. And while I'm, if you don't mind, if you're watching, let us know where you're from. And then that we can see about directing you to more specific examples, and we can give you some good, strong partnerships. But yeah, I love that question. So I'm just going to wrap up, and then we'll take some more questions at the end. But please keep them coming because these are great. So Alexis, I talked a little bit at the beginning about the why of CS and diversity in CS. Alexis talked about the current policies that are going on CS. And now I want to wrap up by talking about how you can support CS expansion in your districts or your community. So what does an effective computer science program look like? And here's a little hint. It's not just about Microsoft Word or keyboarding, although those are good skills to know. So for code.org, we offer a curriculum for 3 different levels. So in the elementary level, which would be CS fundamentals, the kids are going to learn about procedural thinking, collaboration, algorithms, creative computing, solving problems, and debugging. Then when they move up to the middle school level, which is CS discoveries, they're going to build on those elementary components. And they're also going to learn about game and web design. They're going to learn about visual programming. They're going to learn about how to use computers to collect and represent data. And then when they get to the high school level, which is CS principles, they're going to take all that and also learn how to understand abstractions, how to understand design and engineering constraints. They're going to learn how to solve, and I think one of the important things they're going to learn how to solve real-world problems using computers. And so, like I said, with code.org, we have 3 courses that we offer. So fundamentals is for K through 12, discoveries for 6 through 10, so middle school, and CS principles, which can be offered as, and discoveries can be a semester or year-long course. And then principles can be offered as an intro course, but also can be offered as AP, and that's for the high school level. These courses are also offered on our website at code.org, and they're open source. So you can go online and and utilize the curriculum for classes. And like Alexis said, we're not the only ones in town. So there are a lot of great other courses that are out there. And if you go to code.org/teach, you can see a list of, and choose a grade band, you can see a list of recommended providers with information about their curriculum, their PD, and their pricing. So I want to talk a little bit about how we support new to CS teachers. So like I said at the beginning, I'm on the outreach team. So I'm one of the people on the team that manage our partnerships with our regional partners that we have around the US. Currently, we have 57 regional partners. And they come from universities or other nonprofits, and they support teachers, and they're regional. So they know the local landscape of education. So here in Texas, like Alexis said, I manage our partnership with University of Texas in Austin. And I also manage our partnership, and they manage most of Texas. And then I also manage our partnership with Rice University School Mathematics Program, which manages Houston. Those regional partners are assisted by over 500 facilitators nationwide who host code.org PD year-round. So for CS Fundamentals, what that looks like is teachers, it's a one-day workshop to attend. We focus on classroom teachers at that grade level, librarians, technology leads, although any educator who is interested in learning more about computer science education is more than welcome to attend. And like I said, those are hosted by local facilitators in your region. And then for principles and discoveries, as you can expect, it's a little more, takes a little more time and commitment. It's a year-long PD. So this starts off with 5 days in the summer, hosted by a local regional partner, and then it's followed up by sessions throughout the year. And there is an expectation that a teacher that is accepted into the discoveries or program cohort is also it's made for teachers who are teaching the course while they're in PD. These are meant to be taken in person, but of course, with our current pandemic going on, I imagine that most of our regional partners will be hosting these virtually for the 2021 cohorts. And this conference, at least for us, couldn't come at a better time because we have applications opening up around the country starting on Tuesday. That's Tuesday, right? Yes, Tuesday the 27th. We're starting here in Texas, and several states are opening this year, or this week, or next week rather. And then other states will open between October and January. You can go to code.org/apply to learn about the program in your region, and there are definitely scholarships available. So I want to wrap up by having you all kind of think of, things to consider for next steps. So here's some questions, and feel free to either just take a screenshot or jot them down or just think about them or put them in the chat. We love to hear what you all are thinking. So as you're thinking about how you can take this information and move it into your region, so what is your district define computer science, and how does it look like in your schools? Does your district currently offer computer science in elementary school, middle school, or high school? What about AP/CS courses? At the middle or high school level, is computer science part of a CTE or a general education pathway? And then can students earn course credit when they take these classes? So these are some good questions to consider as you're thinking about how to expand CS in your region. Lastly, I would love to hear from you. If you have any thoughts about this, what does your district need to ensure that all students receive high quality CS education? So we're here for some questions. Let me know if there's any questions in the chat that we can talk about or answer right now. Okay, perfect. I'm seeing some school districts. So we have Vines, primary sets in Texas here, Whispering Pines, elementary, Klein, intermediate. Great.
We have lots of Texas schools, and that's
great.
There's one thing I wanted to mention, because we have so many Texas folks in the house, is last session, which was 2019, because Texas runs on the biennium session, we worked on a bill called SB 93, and I'm actually just making sure I'm not making it up here, the number, or I'm sorry, yes, I did make that up, HB 2984. Let's see. So for funding, okay. So it was HB 963 in 2019 and HB3, which were in the education budget, and it was an omnibus bill. And basically that means it's a bunch of different budgets together for education in one bill that went through the legislature. In Texas, now we have seen the computer science courses move under CTE. And the reason that we advocated for that in close partnership with UT Austin, Microsoft, College Board, and TEA, and a couple of others is we wanted to incentivize schools to offer computer science courses. And unfortunately, the schools were competing with other computer science courses that were not under CTE. We're competing with programs like floral design and cosmetology. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love flowers and makeup as much as the next girl, but there was not a financial incentive to teach computer science. So how Texas works is, and many states in the country have this, but not all, there is an additional funding per pupil for students enrolled in CTE courses. So the law that we helped pass has changed it so that computer science can count for the additional per pupil percentage as well. And principals and districts we know are very interested in having those types of CTE programs because it means more money for the school. So it's 35% above pupil-based funding, and then 40% of that total funding has to go back into CTE programming, and that includes teacher professional development. So for those of you who are in Texas, we're realizing that this information hasn't been widely spread and isn't incredibly well known. Computer science teachers may know about it, but for whatever reason, district leaders or principals may not be aware. So please make sure that you are familiar and your teachers and your principals are familiar with the fact that computer science now under CTE brings your school more money per pupil enrolled in that course.
I actually have a question about that, but it goes in line with what the questions are, the comments are in the chat. How do you build that relationship of support as this is new underneath CTE? Meaning they're not used to, which is weird to say, they're not used to supporting computer science. Even the computer programming here in the state of Texas, that was not recognized. And so when it shifted, we're dealing with that struggle of the teachers not being certified to teach computer science, one, and finding those teachers that may not have, but want to teach it, but they're not certified. Mm-hmm. And CTE are not aligned to what tech apps, how to support previous tech apps courses. Right. So one, how do we get that funding? How do you go about finding the policy? Where do you find the verbiage to go to your district leaders to say, here is said funding for said courses? And then how do you provide incentives? Provide incentives for those teachers who are going in within those programs for certification to support these courses?
I am going onto the TEA website right now and getting the language to post in here, because this is no joke. This is serious and people need to know. So I'm going to look that up right now. LeoLin, I don't know if you want to talk about if there's any other pieces, but I would just say one other aspect of the districts is I strongly recommend the Scripps workshops. So that is under CS for All. Do you know about this, Shayna?
Yes.
Here while I look up
here in Texas, because of all of the advocacy that you obviously are doing, it was full and there were no more spaces to get in for that. So if there was another one, or I know we're in COVID, so things are a little difficult, but that may be something that could help with that advocacy and building that, that communication, building the path in policy for district levels to do, because I think that I agree with you, that is what's missing.
Mm-hmm. And as Alexis looks that up, I will say that I think one thing that I think is great about the current CS community is that we're all, at the end of the day, we want kids to have access and participate in computer science. So we're all here to work together, whether it's with TEALS or CS for All or any of the plethora of curriculums that are out there. We're here to work together. So as you leave out this call or this video conference, if you have questions about or want to get connected, like reach out to Alexis or I, and we'll definitely help put you in the right connection with people that you need to get this moving or started even in your district. So not sure if you found what you're looking for. I'm going to go back.
Yes, there's a few different like media releases that are on the TEA website, but I'm trying to find that. Actually, I think that the board, the TEA board, had a policy memo that had all of this information. Give me just a moment. I'm trying to find that here.
We're getting our 9-minute warning. So 9-minute red flashing sign. So like I said, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. You all have been asking some really great questions so far. So we really appreciate it. Is there anyone currently teaching any form of teaching CS in their schools?
Great question.
Or thought about it at any grade level?
I will say this, definitely follow these ladies. I'm going to put the slide back up so that you can see their emails, because obviously these are the two who can help you answer questions either on your campus or for your district, and who to connect with. So,
all right, I found the link. So I'm putting it in our private chats. I do not have the
I can
power to do the YouTube and this chat. So give me just a second. I'm giving this to Shana to post.
Yes.
So this memo was released by the Texas Education Agency on September 5th, 2019. And this was the final statewide CTE program of study that was modified through HB3 and outlines also the Perkins 5 funding that is available for CTE in the state. So Perkins is federal, HB3 is state funding for Texas. And if you scroll down to the second part of that web page, it says CTE and technology applications funding. Technology applications, also known as tech apps. It talks about how the weighted funding is now provided for high school tech apps courses, including all high school computer science courses. And Texas is interesting how y'all define it sometimes as 7-12. So it's really middle school and high school. And I lied, I thought it was 40%. It's actually 55% has to be spent on CTE. So it's 35% above pupil base funding for students enrolled. And then of that total aggregate amount, 55% of it has to go back into CTE at the school.
Excellent, ladies. I think the numbers even creeped up on the people coming in. Somebody must have told someone, you need to come in right now. You need to come in this right now. They're talking truth over here. You need to come on over.
I love it. I see CSD, I see AP CSP with TEALS, coding clubs, robotics clubs, code HS and other coding, 6th grade, CSD 8th grade. This is simple coding with Kinder. This is so exciting to me to see the young, especially the younger ages, getting into technology and having that opportunity. This is great. This is really exciting to hear and see. Thank you all for y'all work. It's not just us. Thank you all for y'all work in the classroom.
If you're not plugged into your local CSTA chapter, I would also strongly encourage the teachers on the in the video conference to get involved with your local CSTA chapter. You can find out what your chapter is, if there is one in your region, on the CSTA website. I know Dan Blyer, who I work with closely on some of advocacy work in Texas, he is on the board and is the incoming CSTA president, and he is in Plano ISD, I believe. And so you have a National Computer Science Teacher Association member right in your backyard. And if you don't have a CSTA chapter, think about starting one to support other teachers in this space. And I'd be happy to come in, and I'm sure LeoLin too, to give presentations. And I've done this for many CSTA chapters.
So I'm going to jump in and say, and there are more people jumping on this chat as we talk. I want to say, definitely you are so right. And I don't know if you knew it, but I am the president for CSTA Greater Houston. So you will be coming over. You just committed yourself. Everybody in this chat, everybody on this video, we are watching. You do realize that. Excellent, Alexis. I couldn't have said it better.
And there's discussion.
That was not planned. That was not planned.
No, I had no idea. This is my first time meeting Shana. This is great.
Yes, you were talking to Dan because I know he does a lot of advocacy for the state, but in the Dallas area. So definitely come on over here to Houston. Come on down. Come on down. Virtually, of course. Come on down, and we can definitely make that happen. So we can talk a little later.
Yeah,
I want to thank everyone. Yes, the VP is in the house too. The vice president for CSTA Greater Houston is here attending this session as well. He has a session right after this one too. I am going to place a banner now with the password. The super secret password for these ladies is encourage. Encourage. And you actually did. You encouraged all of us to be here. So, I seriously think they must have been telling people to come over. So thank you, ladies. I'm going to give you have 3 minutes. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to say your last piece. Thank you, everybody who is joining us. And I'm going to close. You have approximately 2 minutes before your session closes out.
Perfect. Yeah. Once again, you all, I'm LeoLin. I'm based here in Austin, Texas. I would love to hear from you if you have any questions or you want to hear more about our applications that are opening up or just any information about CS or code.org. This is an exciting time as we have Hour of Code coming up. But thank you all for coming and asking these amazing questions. We really appreciate your time.
Thanks, LeoLin. And my name is Alexis. Thank you all for being here. I'd be happy to answer any advocacy questions you have. Regardless of the role you have in education, you have the ability to make change in your school, at your district, or at your state level. And I'm currently working with many folks in Texas to work on a legislative agenda for the upcoming biennium session. If you're interested in getting involved, feel free to shoot me an email, alexis@code.org, or message me on Twitter. Thank you all so much.
Timing was impeccable. Great job, ladies. I will make sure to tweet out lots from this session. Definitely tweet them out. Everybody get a screenshot. We're going to take a minute. If anybody wants to take a group shot, 3, 2, 1, because this was great. Ladies, enjoy the rest of your day. I will be in touch.
Thank you so much.
They told me before I stop it, they want the Twitter handle. So let me go back to the banner and switch over to your Twitter handle so that they have your information. There it is. They're still dropping in the chat to ask. Got it. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Talk to you soon.
Thank you all. Y'all have a great day.
You too. Thanks.